Fortunately, the car that the four men were riding in was never suspected, and they hurried directly from Yotsuya Mitsuke Station to Shinjuku. By the time they arrived at Nakamuraya, it was just past 9 o'clock at night, and the workers were busily closing up the store. However, on this evening, there were still a few customers remaining inside, happily doing their shopping. The luxury vehicle parked just in front of the entrance, and the four men in their long tombi coats got out, all with their caps pulled down to shadow their faces. The men entered Nakamuraya, and weaving their way through the customers, they disappeared into the back of the shop. Before long, the four figures re-emerged and once again made their way through the busy shoppers, exited through the front doors, and climbed back into the waiting car. The vehicle then drove off in the direction from which it had come, disappearing out of sight. The final stage of the meticulously planned escape had been successfully completed. The four men who entered the shop had been Bose, Gupta, Aizo, and Mr. Miyagawa. But these were not the same people who exited. Once they had safely reached the back of the shop, Bose, Gupta, and Aizo had taken off their coats and caps and handed them over to three shopkeepers who were there waiting for them. It was these Nakamuraya employees and Mr. Miyagawa who soon re-emerged from the back. They deliberately walked amongst the customers as they exited the store, and in doing so they had secured a number of witnesses who could confirm that they had seen the same four men briefly visiting the shop and uneventfully returning to their car. Not even the driver of Sugiyama Shigemaru's car had been informed of what was taking place. When Mr. Sugiyama saw his driver return, having been anxiously waiting at home to hear how the plan had turned out, he immediately inquired about what had happened. "What happened to the guests?" he asked eagerly. "I picked up four gentlemen from the back garden of Mr. Terao's residence. I drove them to Nakamuraya in Shinjuku, where they attended some business before returning to the car. Three gentlemen got off at Yotsuya Mitsuke Station, and the final passenger I drove to his home," the driver replied. If even the driver himself had not noticed that the men who had exited the car at Nakamuraya were not the same as those who had gotten back in, for the time being, it sounded as though the plan had gone smoothly. Everyone who had been involved in the escape breathed a deep sigh of relief. It was not only Bose who the Somas were sheltering, but Gupta as well. However, a short time later, Gupta ran away without saying goodbye to Aizo and Kokko. Worried that if he were to be caught and apprehended, Bose's hiding place would be revealed, Toya Mitsuru immediately had his men search for Gupta. He was discovered before long, and following Toyama's orders, Gupta was sheltered by Okawa Shumei. After the authorities' search for the two revolutionaries had died down, in accordance with Gupta's wishes, Toyama helped him secretly flee to America. Although for the first several days, Bose and Gupta had been moving together as a pair, the ever-cautious Bose made a point of never including Gupta's name in his writings.